So to kick things off, I do start with the same boring ass question every time. Simple introduction, man. Who are you? A little background on yourself.
Yeah, I am Mark from 408. A little bit of background about me. I love Blink 182. I love emo, pop punk, alternative music, Jimmy Eat World, Reliant K. Started the band in 2017 and just continuing to release and record music.
Awesome. So I love to hear. Obviously, Blink is in this scene one of the most commonly referenced, but you mentioned like Reliant K and stuff, and I don't. I think they're one of those bands. They got their flowers, right? Like people appreciate them, but they're one of those bands that I don't think enough people acknowledge how much of an influence they had on the music scene.
Massive. Yeah, I would say like whether you were part of like the youth group scene or not, I don't really think that matters because they're I was a fan of them as early as like 2000 and like one or two.
Yeah.
That's basically when I started to be able to ingest music and recognize like what my favorite bands were. And they exploded onto the mainstream with their record in 2004, and that was on MTV, TRL, like a
Yeah.
few songs. And even so, a little bit after that too, the 4 score and 7 years ago, or whatever, I forgot, or five, I can't remember the name of that album, but the one after the album had another song that was on
Hmm.
TRL and stuff. But they had amazing tracks, amazing deep cuts, massively influential, and bands like the State Champs and other bands that I can't even think of off the top of my head, but they just had a huge influence on a lot of bands.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly it. Is like I think the problem is they got pigeonholed as the youth group band, right? Like, oh, if you listen to Reliant K, you must be the church kid or whatever. And it's like, no, man, they were writing bangers. Like, I didn't go
Yeah.
to church and I fucking loved Reliant K. To this day, like, there's several songs that come on and I'm not skipping that. I'm going to sing along. Like, this is fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Getting to see them and When We Were Young was amazing. Also, I got to work with Matt Thiessen on some of these songs that our newest song that came out, Remember Her Like That, was written with Matt Thiessen. So that was a really cool moment for me because I'd been listening to his music for so long.
Yeah. So let's talk about kind of you touched on it there, like when you were able to start ingesting music yourself and like kind of formulating what you love. What was it like? Was there kind of that light switch moment of this is going to be the direction I want to go? Like I want to make music, I want to pursue this dream.
Yeah, I think I got to give it to, bands like Reliant K, Blink 182, and A Day to Remember. More so Blink. I think Blink, like Reliant K, will always be one of the most influential bands in my life, but Blink 182 was just like, this is insane. Like whatever this is, the first time I heard it, I'm like, this is amazing. Like I gotta play bass. I gotta sing like Mark Hoppus and Tom DeLonge. Like I love these songs. I love like the progressions and that just stuck with me, like there I just don't think anything will ever have that much of an impact on my life going forward just because the amount of angst that's in those records, like Take Off Your Pants and Jacket and The State, it just resonated with me very much so. And I'm from South Florida, and if that mean in when I mean that, be west coast of Florida, like Venice, like very small beach town, nothing really
Yeah.
going on. There's nothing to do besides like drugs or maybe surf and skate. And I didn't do drugs back then, so I just dived into being in bands and playing some really crappy small local shows. And but I loved it. And even before like the resurgence of the pop punk stuff, like I started 408. I've always wanted to start a band like this, but I finally was able to get to a point in my life where I'm like, all right, I want to start a band that is inspired by this sound and grow it from there, and that's what we did.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's interesting too because, I'm 38, so for me growing up, very similar like timeline was grew up listening to classic rock because that's what my parents listened to, whatever, started cutting my teeth on my own stuff. And then my brother had bought Dookie by Green Day. And I remember that was like the light switch for me of, oh, I relate to that. Like I need to go down that road and see what's out, what else is out there. Which obviously led me over to Blink and some other bands at that time. And it's like, I think it's such a pivotal moment, when as a child you start to recognize yourself in songs and finding bands that kind of are speaking words that you've lived, and it triggers this moment of like, okay, so now I have to decide, like, do I just kind of follow the path that my parents are laying out before me, or do I, venture down this road and try to start making my own personality? And I think that's something with your music, like you said, it maybe took you a little while to get to the point where you're starting to write music that's inspired by those bands. But now that you are, like, I can hear some of that nostalgia, whether it's intentional or not. Like I hear that nostalgia of, man, if I would have heard this when I was 17, when I was 15, whatever, like this would have been one of those gateway bands for me.
That's cool. No, thank you. I mean, the inspiration very much so was from that time, and then it continues to grow and ever flow as we go later into the timeline of life, I would say.
Yeah. Well, and you guys have, as you've progressed in the relatively short time that you've been in this iteration of a project, right? Like I say short time because let's be honest, the 2.5 years of the pandemic don't fucking count, right? Like you've been a band for around 5 years, but that pandemic really fucked you up on some of it. So,
Yeah.
as you've built, you've been able to work with some incredible guests already, right? Like you guys have worked with Magnolia Park, Taylor Acorn, like you said, working with Matt now on some of the new stuff. Like, talk a little bit about finding the friends in the scene, right? The friends that, hey, we're all passionate about this thing. We want to support each other.
Yeah, Magnolia Park and us both are from Orlando, and we both were playing a lot of shows together in the beginning. And they're just really cool people all the way around. They're good friends of mine, and we became friends through music, obviously. And they're just great dudes. We relate on a lot of things. Like I love hip hop, they love hip hop. They like certain bands, they like Blink, I like Blink. We just had a lot of similarity in taste and style and fashion and music and our directions of our band. Both bands started to take a lot of chances with their sound, and they recognized that, I recognized that what they did, and we both recorded at the same studio. So we were just always seeing each other. We were always working with each other. I love Josh's voice.
Yeah.
Tristan is a really cool writer and guitarist. So is Freddie, and all the guys are sick. But me and Josh hit it off, and I was like, "Damn, I got a couple songs. Josh, you should see if these are dope." And we'd always talked about doing songs, but we finally got to a place where like, all right, cool, let's run it. And we've done, I want to say maybe like 4 collaborations now. And definitely more to come in the future. But yeah, love working with them. Taylor Acorn, another really good singer that we knew through a friend. And we wrote the song Nashville with my buddy Nick and Kyle. And it was a great song, and they were able to get Taylor on the song, and it just was really sick. So it all comes together pretty seamlessly.
Yeah. And I think that's when the best art happens, right? Like, of course you're going to have some that are the paid features, and that's a whole nother animal. But like when it's just friends helping friends and trying to just, a rising tide raises all ships, right? Like I'll support you guys, you support me, like whatever, and the scene just gets better that way. And I think it's something with pop punk specifically, and emo, whatever genre label we want to put on all this. um
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the old school mentality of like every band for himself has kind of gone out the window with this resurgence of pop punk. And it's like, no, we're all going to do this together because we love this thing.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point. It's way different landscape, way different mindset than it was back then. I don't think anybody thought about collaborating back then. Nowadays, it's in the band world, but nowadays, I think the band world really learned from the cool music we got out of like hip hop, pop, and alternative because they've been doing it forever,
Yeah.
and it's really cool. And then we just started adapting that. Everyone in the scene started adapting features, and it just brings a whole new creative outlook to a song, and it's cool. We should have been doing it a long time ago.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the kind of sad part, right? Like looking back and you're like, man, if these guys would have linked up, like that could have just been a jackpot
Nut.
for so many. And you've got some that are happening now that like I just saw Yellow Card and Pierce the Veil announce that they've got a track coming out together. And it's like back in the
Correct.
day, I never would have put them together on a song because that wasn't the mindset. But now it's like, yeah, that makes perfect fucking sense.
Yep. Exactly.
Um, so we have to talk about TikTok, right? Let's talk about
Sure.
how TikTok is kind of was the launch pad, right? Like you were building a fan base, obviously, but we don't get high like we used to, and just some of the songs that have already started garnering that attention. What do you see as a difference? Because I mean, you grew up in a world without TikTok, right? And you've had to evolve into this. What do you think the difference is in old school marketing versus leveraging TikTok when it comes to the music side of the business? I know that's a really
I think
heavy
it's
loaded question.
Yeah, no, that's a blessing and a curse because the reach that you can gain from using the app is amazing. But it also is a whole other side of the brain that every creator that is trying to do this seriously has to use, and it's a taxing. I mean, you get to points where even just musically back, I mean, even just 4 or 5 years ago, 6 years ago, you didn't have to think about visuals all the time. You had to think about
Yeah.
maybe a cool music video here and there, and that's fine. And the art gets consumed deeper back then than I think it does now. Now you have to be very, very fast and creating always. And that kind of sucks because it takes away from what a musician really wants to do is just play and sing and do whatever that is. But from a marketing standpoint, I think it's a cool thing. It has its taxing moments, but overall, I think it is a tool. With that being said, I wish there was, because when we were really, just anybody in general, it used to be music videos and albums that people used to really like dive into the artist, and
Mm-hmm.
that still does happen today. But there's just so much content on a daily basis on that app and on Instagram, everything. Just every day there's content, content, content. So people forget about things very fast. It's this song's amazing. I love this song. 7 to 10, 12 days go by. You're like, all right, I'm tired of this. I need a new song. Like our attention spans are just so short these days, and that's everybody.
Yeah.
Um, but just to answer your question in the best way possible is TikTok is an amazing tool. You have to create triple and quadruple the amounts of content that you would by just writing and making a song, I guess is the best way to do it. And it is effective if you do that. If you don't, then you're not going to be as effective and it's not going to work as well.
Yeah. So while you were talking about that, I was definitely paying attention, but I also wanted to see the number to your point, or to further your point. Um, there are approximately 34 million posts to TikTok per day currently going
Mm-hmm.
out. So, like, to your point about just how saturated, like, obviously, that's not all music. Some of it's, divorce court clips or whatever, but like, it's still like the algorithm's not perfect either. So while you may be posting the music stuff, people aren't always going to see the music stuff. They're going to see whatever, an episode of Cops or whatever it is. And it's like I think it is a, like you said, a kind of a blessing and a curse where like on the one hand, we know that we're creating this dope art. Now I have to try to cut it down into bite-sized segments as well though, and figure out how to get that out to people. Um Obviously at the end of the day, you don't want it to influence your writing style or anything, but have you noticed any change in that where it's like, okay, I know these, we don't get high like we used to, blew up on TikTok. I need to write hooks more like that, or is it influencing you at all?
It is influencing us. So when we created Highlight Beast, we wrote it in Nashville with the band, Katie Cecil and her boyfriend. And how the song came, we were just in a normal writing session. Chris had this loop thing, and I was like, oh, that's sick. But there was no progression, there was no chord progression. And then I picked up the guitar and I really was in a Reliant K mood because I think I'd written with Matt Thiessen or was going to write with him, and I really wanted to do something like Reliant K. So I wrote a progression that I feel that felt like them, and then I came up with the line. I'm like, what if we sing about like just not getting high like we used to? And I was actually thinking of like a knuckle puck type like melody, and then we refined everything, and then we got high like we used to. But once the success of that song came out, we do have a new song on the record that is in the same house of We Don't Get High Like We Used to. It's a different song completely, but I think it's hard to say. It's like it is influenced us, but at the same time, we we still are just creating our own stuff that we want to make, and hopefully the app and algorithm gods will support the new choices that we make. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. That's the trick of this whole thing is sometimes you have a really good song and it just you can't go viral with it, and sometimes the song that you least expect goes viral. But there's other reasons why that happens, is the type of content you're posting, the lighting, the what, just the text on the screen, any of it. It's all random. So ultimately, I think it's just a matter of making really cool songs and just making as many as you can and marketing them as many different ways as you can.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think you're right too. I've had a few people say something similar on like, there's no rhyme or reason to what goes viral. Like, you guys could post a clip of you playing live and from the music video, right? Like, you post that clip of you guys in the living room playing and things like that. And it's like, oh, that's really cool. And that one goes off. But then, a band that, I don't know, let's say like State Champs or something, and they did something similar, and it's like, oh, why didn't this one work? Like, there's so many variables as to like what's going to work for which band. Do you think now that you've seen some of that success, even if it doesn't consciously adjust how you're writing the song, are you thinking about it after the fact on like, okay, we've got the song together, I think these are the clips from the song that are going to work on TikTok or Instagram Reels or whatever?
Yeah, we test everything. We test out every segment. At least I do, and a couple other guys do in the band. I mean, it's tough to say. Magnolia Park has had many different segments of their songs go that you would least expect. Like the second verse on their song 10 for 10 went very viral, and
Mm-hmm.
that's not the chorus.
Yeah.
So everyone thinks, oh, it's got to be the chorus. So that's not necessarily true. But yeah, I think you got to test every part of your song because you never know. I mean, even the biggest TikTok sounds of all time, it's not always the chorus. It's the beginning of the song. It's the verse. It just you don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah, for sure. And I think too with some of that is like, especially if it's a unreleased track at the time of you doing some of that marketing, you almost don't want to give away the chorus to some extent, right?
Mhm. Correct. I mean, my methodology on that is if you have a song, let's say you have a couple songs, whatever, and you start to test them, I wouldn't hold back from posting the chorus. Give it a shot. if it works really well, and for whatever reason, it just, I think you have to gauge at how well it does. So if you post it, and for you, if you get like 5,000 to 10,000 views, and if for you that's a lot, then hold on to it, get it to a point of being ready to release, and then attack. If for whatever reason you get way more than that, then you got to try to release it as soon as possible to capitalize on the momentum. Um, I think we tried to do the same thing. We posted it. We were not anticipating this song going viral. We didn't even have it recorded. It was a demo,
Yeah.
and the demo was fully done, but not the actual song. So we started to post it, and we were just dicking around, going, "Oh, well, let's try this." And then we got 100,000 views on it. I'm like, "Oh, damn! What if we did this?" And we tried one other thing, and then that was the one that got like 1.3 million views. And we're like, "Fuck, we got to record this song and release it." So we were a little behind on getting it out, like when the viral moment happened. I mean, but at the end of the day, like, people were still stoked and hyped on the track, and we got it recorded, mixed and mastered and released within 3 weeks of it going viral. So, I mean, that's pretty good. Hats off to my producer Andy for getting that done. So,
Yeah, and I
you know,
mean, looking at the Spotify numbers now, it's over 3 million streams just on Spotify. So, you know,
yeah,
timing may have been off, but it's still not bad.
yeah, not bad. But now the expectations are, I mean, just in the music industry, it's just you got to multi millions of streams. I mean, because at the end of the day, it's like 3 million streams is cool, but it's not game changing if you want to do it as a career.
Yeah.
Really, really grow and expand out there, because there's other creators that go viral, and it's 45 times more than what we did. And look at the country song that went viral, the what was it, Oliver Anthony.
Yeah. Yeah.
That guy just completely took over the app for a good 3 weeks or maybe more.
Yeah.
So
And on the metal side, like when Bad Omen started blowing up,
that omen,
Sleep Token
insane.
now, like, yeah, it's silly. But I think a lot of that too comes into, you know, hopefully the algorithm gods, like you said, are putting it in front of the right people. And that's the real trick, is like, I'm not even going to pretend to understand the science behind the algorithm, but like, if you're posting it from your personal account, is it looking at what type of videos did you like? So now I'm going to distribute it to them, versus, oh, your band's demographic is this, that's where it should go.
I wish I knew that,
You're
because
right.
it, there's so many different ebbs and flows of the algorithm, and it's frustrating because you start to feel like you're getting some momentum like the first two times you're posting something, and then you're like, okay, cool, like this one got 30,000 views, that means the next one has got to get more, and then it doesn't. And it's tough. It's I think the best advice for anyone that cares to listen to this is look at what else is going viral in your niche and replicate those types of videos, because that's all that you can really do. Obviously you can be creative on your own, but if you can replicate what's already working within the past 5 to 7 business days, then you have a higher chance of going viral, because the app is currently pushing these types of content. And that's how we've won so far, as
Yeah.
we've saw the creators doing similar types of videos, and we're like, oh, we should do this, and we did it.
Yeah. And I think that's the key, is, it's the unfortunate part of the business, because that's where you're feeling like your band is a business. But watching the
Mm-hmm.
quote unquote competitors, or whatever, in the space, I think Loveless is a great example of this, where he's so quick to shift on like what style of video he does, but it's working, or at least being consistent every time. And I think it's one of those things where once you start recognizing how to do it in the short form, the long form, you're able to be the full creative that you want to be, because you've already hooked them in that short form.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I wish long form got more attention, like when we say long form, let's just say music videos.
Right.
It's seemingly like they're cool and they grow at a decent
Much
pace,
slower
like
rate.
steadily. Yeah, but when you go back on it, there's a lot of cool things to look at and be like, oh wow, this piece of art stood the test of time in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, and it's still really cool. And it's cool for the fans, like because I'm a fan of music, and if I want to go see a cool music video, I can. It's just not as readily used and viewed. Like we all used to sit around a TV and watch YouTube videos. Those days are like not really there
Yeah.
anymore. Like here and there, like if your buddies get together, maybe you'll do it. But there used to be way more of like, all right, cool. It's like watching music videos, even as 2017, 2018, that was still a thing. Now it's just not really that I'm seeing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, nowadays it is a lot of like just sending the TikTok clip or the Instagram reel to friends and being like, "Hey, check this out. That's cool." Um, but yeah, how many of those you unlocked a core memory for me there with, the old watching YouTube videos. Me and buddies used to get together all the time and do that. And how many nights do those turn into the fucking rabbit hole though, where you end up on the weirdest fucking shit on YouTube, and you're like, "What are we doing, guys? How did we get here?"
YouTube poop and like crazy shit. That
Yeah,
shit was funny.
yeah. I
Fun.
remember distinctly like sitting at a buddy's apartment and like going down some fucking rabbit hole, and then we were on like supposed aliens getting hit by a car, and then like the chupacabra and all these like conspiracy cryptozoology things, and it's like, what the fuck is happening? Or you end up on I'm sure you'll remember them, the fucking two like Indian dudes that just built houses and shit in the woods
Yeah.
with no fucking tool, and it's like, what are we doing? Why have we watched this for 4 hours?
It's wild. It's wild, man. There's some funny stuff on there. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of sad because that platform, YouTube is still very useful. And I guess to kind of summarize both TikTok and YouTube, everything is really just keyword and search based now, even including TikTok, which it's just a different medium, like we just use it for different things now than we did before. Like TikTok's more entertainment, YouTube's more like how to videos and
Yeah.
gaming related, and TikTok will eventually kind of fall to the wayside as well, and there will be a new platform that encompasses more users, but we'll see when that comes.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that's gonna, not to get political in it, but a lot of that's gonna depend on, who and where that app or whatever comes from, because whether it's Facebook or whoever the Chinese government is that owns TikTok, like there's so much conspiracy around a lot of that with your data and things, and it's like I joke with people all the time about, I have a friend who refused to get a new iPhone because they didn't want the Face ID and whatever, and it's like, okay, that's fine, but their logic was that that's how the government gets updated photos of your face, and I'm like, you have a driver's license. They've had
Mm.
your fucking picture since you were 16 years old. Like, what are you talking about?
They probably got AI tools where they could just, even if they didn't know what you look like now, they could just like.
Yeah, age you. Yeah, it's so ridiculous. Let's talk about the writing process and getting into the new single "Remember Her Like That." Like, talk a little bit about, you know as we've gotten older, but pop punk is still sad boy hour, right? So like, what's it like feeling like, not necessarily that you should be past this by any means, but like that concept of having the maturity to look at these situations and write a song about it now versus when we were growing up and it was the fuck my ex-girlfriend pop punk.
I think since I've grown up with it, I've chosen to write about my life, and I always try to put like parts of my life in the song. And fortunately and unfortunately for me, I've been through a lot of relationships and they're all different. And not all of them are bad, and not a majority of them are, but you start to learn a lot from each person that you date and that you thought you're going to marry and you didn't. And then you're just like, wow, this is kind of crazy. And then time goes on, and then you don't have the same friends anymore. And then you don't really do the same things. Like, you don't have fun anymore sometimes, or like it seems like it was more fun back then when you had a different group of friends. And then you just start to write a bunch of different things. So I just kind of let the songs come to me. And then whether someone has the idea that's the leader of the song, I always try to say, okay, well, cool, let's put this little nugget in there. And then that's how I relate to all the music that we do. There's at least a very small portion of myself in the track, you know,
Yeah.
whether any time of life. So when it comes to maturity, I think it's just easier to write music because there's a lot more to talk about. And I'm also, you just can't really force it. You just have to let the song come to you. I know a lot of people say like, oh, you need to write like a lot, and I think you do, but also at the same time, I think taking breaks and allowing yourself to analyze where you are in life and then go back to the guitar or whatever you used to write, and then new things will come out from that.
Yeah, and I love that you say you need to give yourself time, because I do think, especially with the digital age that we're in now and how quickly people are consuming stuff, there's a different level of pressure now to constantly be putting stuff out or constantly be writing. Not that there wasn't pressure before, but like bands used to write an album, and then 2.5 years later was the next album, and that was just the way the cycle worked. You toured on it for a year and a half, then you went and wrote for a year, and now it's like, hey, we put out this album, now we have to be on the road for 6 months, but then I have to have the new album ready to go when that tour
Mhm.
ends so that we can be out again. Like, what do you think that dynamic is, and how's that kind of potentially affected the mentality of the music scene?
I think bands will burn out that are having to think of this unrealistic expectation, especially if they're a newer band. If they're a band from anytime after 2017 or even maybe like 2016, there's two schools of thought. Like the old school, take your time, write the album. The new school, release as much as you can. I think there's an in between, and that's where I like to think we are, is release as much as you can if you feel like it and if you got some good stuff that you want to say, but don't say things just to say them. Don't
Yeah.
release a song just because you feel like you have to. But at the same time, don't take too long because people will forget. So that's the best way I could put that, is stay vigilant, stay on top of your music. But if you feel like you need to take 90 days off and don't drop a song, that's okay. But I wouldn't wait any longer than that. I wouldn't wait like 8 months.
Right.
So it's
Yeah, for sure. And especially, if you're the exception, if there's any sort of exception, the exception would be you're on a fucking world tour already somehow. Like, sure, it's going to take you longer to drop music. People understand that. But if it's, like you said, a relatively new band that quote unquote isn't doing anything, like, you don't really have too much excuse to go, 6 months in between singles way anymore. Everybody's dropping, you know, 9 of the 10 songs as singles before an album comes out. Where do you
mm,
think that's at for you guys specifically? I guess, like, is the mentality we're gonna kind of have everything released and then, oh, that's this collection essentially? You know what I mean? Name the album afterwards, or is it a, no, we have a body of work, we're gonna put out, 2, 3 singles, and then the body of work comes out?
so what we're doing now, and we've done this in the last 2 years or so, is if we write 12 songs, we'll do 5 or 6 singles, 6 brand new songs no one's heard. Um, from a Spotify releasing perspective and in a singles perspective, it sucks for those songs that don't get treated as a single. But with TikTok, that's where it doesn't really matter what song is the single or not. It matters what song reacts. So where we're at currently is get a group of songs, release as close to 50% of them as possible, and then leave at least 50% new material for people to hear. So I think that's our methodology. That's what we're currently doing. We have a new album coming out and we're releasing 5 singles, but there's 12 songs on the album. So
Yeah. So that's something else I wanted to touch on. With as much leeway as you're allowed to, don't get in trouble with PR because they know me really well and they'll fight me. But what details can you give about some of that new music and kind of timelines and things like that for what you guys are expecting?
yeah. We have a new song we're gonna drop in December that we wrote with John Feldman. Very excited to drop that. And then from the new year, there we do have an album coming out called Hot Mess. That's gonna be, I think, officially announced sometime at the top of the year. And then 2 more songs will come out. The dates I'm not sure of, but at the top of the year we'll drop a couple of songs and then the album will come out, I think, in March sometime is the plan.
Awesome. Uh, you name dropped him, so I have to also piggyback on it. Feldman is one of those people that I don't think people don't understand that man has touched as many records as he's touched. You know what I mean? Like
They don't.
he has been in everything. What's it like tapping into that and someone that comes from a pretty iconic background anyway? Like Goldfinger was one of those bands when we were growing up that most likely if you surfed or skated, you were listening to Goldfinger. So what's it like for you being able to connect with him and kind of pick his brain about some of this genre, and put out a piece of work?
He's the coolest dude ever. I get along with him so well. He's from that, his era and who he is as a person is just very much in line with what we are as a band, like the skate, surf, punk. He's a true punk rock dude. So we relate on a lot of things, like same humor, same just like mannerisms. He's a great dude. Like love him to death. His talent is immense. There's an immense amount of talent, and getting to work with him was definitely a bucket list moment. Specifically because of what you just said. He's touched so many records. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't know he did the Good Charlotte record. That blew my mind because I'm like, what? You did this one too? Like, I just couldn't believe it. Like, not that he couldn't do it. It's just I didn't know he did that specific record that blew up Good Charlotte. And that just blew my mind. I knew he did so many other things, obviously, but he just got it, man. He just really has that. He has a gift, whether you believe in God or not. He has a fucking gift from God, and you can't really teach that. And he's honed it in obviously over the past 30 plus years. And it's been amazing. And it was really cool to get to bounce ideas off of him and say, like, hey, well, I think this melody is good. I think this is good. And what do you think? And
Yeah.
it was cool to see him enjoy our opinions on the song. So now all it comes down to is we really just want to go viral with one of the songs that we did with him because it would just mean the world to us to show him like, hey, look, like we made this art together and people like it, not so much
Yeah.
just like, oh, who are famous. Like, it's not about that. It's just more so, hey, look, this worked. We can continue to do this longer.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much it in a nutshell, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to name drop some of the people to show like the level of range that Feld has is absolutely insane. So you mentioned Good Charlotte. Looking at the list, he did Ashley Simpson's first record, Hillary Duff. Then he comes over and he does Rights with Avicii, We Came as Romans, Black Veil Brides, fucking Biffy Clyro, Corn. I mean, the dude is in every fucking genre and killing it. And
Yeah.
it's like, to your point, like you're so immensely talented. I can't wrap my head around how you can go from, okay, you're skater punk, to fucking Biffy Clyro. Like, what is happening here?
He just has it, dude. You know, he just like this guy. He is an instrument, like himself is the best way I could say it. You know, and yeah, he's just got it. He's got that special touch and very, very smart and music. I don't want to say music is a science because that's not necessarily true, but there is some truth to that. And he's got the formula down. And you know, he's a very intelligent dude, and man, he cares about his fitness, and he's just all well-rounded guy that really cares about art, and he's great.
Yeah. Plus, it was dope to see Tony Hawk sing Superman with them. So
I know. Did you go to Wimmer Young?
no, I didn't. I saw the videos afterwards, unfortunately, and I was so
I was
jealous that I
there.
wasn't there.
I was like, holy shit! I moshed. I got to go in the pit for a couple of the songs, and he killed it. I mean, his set. That's another thing too. It's like we want to talk about how great of a dude he is. This guy rips shows still. Like it's
Yeah.
nothing. And he was in a full suit. It was pretty hot the first day of when we were young, and this guy's in a full fucking tuxedo pretty much, and just running around on stage and just screaming in the mic and shit. Like they're a good band. They sounded awesome.
Which is a testament to all of the guys, right? Like to have done it as long as they've done it now and still sound. I mean, obviously some of the audio up on the stuff that I heard, but they sound like their record when they perform.
Yep, they do.
Yeah.
They do.
So to kind of transition towards the end here, I don't want to sit down and think of better questions. So I bought this game called Hot Takes that the filter is going to blur. And it's just a party game of spicy opinions, as they call it. So we're just going to hit a couple
Okay.
of these and see what your spicy opinions are.
Nice.
So number one is going to be that people should get a ticket for leaving shopping carts in the parking lot.
Hmm. Isn't there a section in the parking lot to put the carts?
But so I was gonna say I think let's specify if you don't put it back in the little cart corral thing and you just leave it in like a fucking empty parking place, you're an asshole, right?
Yes, but you're creating jobs. People that have those jobs specifically to go pick up the carts. So I don't know. From economic standpoint, I don't think they're assholes.
Okay, that's fair. That sounds a lot like you're guilty of just leaving your cart laying in the parking lot somewhere.
Sometimes, if it's too far away and I gotta go, it's in the parking spot.
Yeah, yeah. The next one is that listening to music while you study or work helps you focus.
Yes,
I was going to say,
100%.
haven't there
I don't
been
really think
studies that have proven that?
that's not a hot take at all. That's a truth.
Yeah, that just seems like actual facts here. Let's see. Let's go with the best. Or sorry, no. Let's go with it's okay to steal from big corporations. I already know the answer to that, but
Sure. I would say
right?
that, I don't think that's yeah. I mean, big corporations steal. What does steal mean? Like that's a loaded question, I guess. But yeah, I mean, if you can if you could take advantage of big corporations for your own benefit that benefits you and your family, why not?
Right. And I think for me, like you said, the definition of steal, we'd have to get really deep in the weeds on. I worked in retail for a long time. I hated
Mm,
them because I had to deal with them, but like I can't fault them for doing it. The extreme couponers, right? Like, yeah, you're technically
mm,
stealing from big corporations, but you're just exploiting a loophole in the system. That's their fucking
yeah,
problem, not yours.
exactly. Yeah, don't commit a crime, but if you could take advantage of the system, then yes, go ahead.
Right, right. Not saying walk out, stealing stuff, but if you can cheat a coupon or something, go for it. All right.
Yeah,
Last one is going to be that New York style pizza is better than Chicago style pizza.
I don't think that's a hot take. I think that's facts. Chicago, like New York style pizza, obviously they're all different. But if you go to the right New York pizza place that's like really good, it's just gonna knock the socks off any Chicago place. And that's because I think it's just flavor profiling. Chicago is so much. I think it's gluttonous. And then the New York style, if you have a few ingredients and you nail it, it's just gonna taste better, you know?
Yeah. I absolutely agree with that. And I forget the band I was talking to, but I had talked to them. They were from Chicago and they said they don't even like deep dish pizza. Like that's the tourist thing. Like they actually prefer thin crust like bar pie.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, most of their friends and family have not ordered a true Chicago style deep dish in like years because it's not what they like. And I'm like, okay, so how do you get the rap for that? You know what I mean? Like if you
Mm-hmm.
if you say like New York style, I know that's a thin floppy big slice of pizza. Chicago is a deep dish pizza, period. There's no other, you know what I mean? Like it's just so ridiculous. There is one more card in there that I'm going to ask now since we got that pizza one. Do you prefer square cut pizza or sliced pizza?
Definitely sliced. It's easier to eat. Square, I don't know. I mean, definitely sliced. Yeah, square is just not as efficient of a shape for the mouth.
Yeah. See, and I think 90% of the time I agree with you. The only advantage that square has is when you get those centerpieces and it's all toppings. Like that's pretty fucking cool. But
Yeah, like Caesars cuts them in square. I just had Little Caesars like 2 months ago randomly, and I was like, "This is kind of cool. It's pretty dope." So I see what you're saying.
yeah, so awesome, man. So the kind of end of every episode is the traditional outro type stuff. I'll obviously link all the socials and everything, but what's the best way for people to interact with you? What do you want to tell people? Do your full promotion, whatever you're quote unquote legally obligated to do.
Yeah, yeah. You can find us. Best way to find us is on either TikTok or Instagram. At 408 Band for TikTok, at 408 Music for Instagram, and we have new music coming out pretty soon. We just released a new song. Always just check on our links in our bio for that, and make sure you follow us on Spotify to get updated when we drop a song.
Awesome, man. I'm stoked for you guys. I'm loving it. I mean, even before the girls over at Big Picture hit me up about this, I discovered you on TikTok. And I think it's one of those things that even as a music journalist, getting pitched all the music and stuff, it goes to show how strong that tool can be when you're discovering music before it even gets pitched to you by, I kid you not, man. I've worked with Big Picture since Dana started the company. So they hadn't
Damn.
even got me your press list yet. And I already was like, oh yeah, 408, can we get them on the podcast? Let's do that. So stoked
Sick.
for you. I really think that there's a lot of room in the pop punk space now. It's interesting with this resurgence again, how it doesn't feel like there's as much gatekeepering or competition. It's really about rising the whole scene, and I think that's leveraging bands like you that are doing something totally new but with just enough nostalgia elements that are hooking the older guys like me, again 38 years old, and still pop punk is my preferred genre.
No, thank you so much. Yeah, we're trying to, like I said, pull from the influences and push it forward as we see fit without losing the roots too much. So that's definitely what we're trying to do.
Awesome, man. I appreciate your time. I'll keep you posted on when this goes live and everything, and we'll go from there on that. But I'm stoked to see you out on the road soon, hopefully. And if you get up within about 3 hours of me, I'll definitely try to get over there.
Yeah, next time we have a show in your area, just remind us. We'll get you on
Yeah,
the list, and if you want people and stuff like that.
yeah, for sure, man. I appreciate your time, Mark. We'll talk soon. Okay.
Have a good one. Good talking to you, man.
Thanks. See you.